Its history and its people are the work of the sea. From the sea came the power of the great O'Driscoll clan. And from the sea came the sturdy Elizabethan settlers whose solid building and self-reliant traditions mark the architecture and character of the town and people to this day. The sea decides that the business of Baltimore is boats, and the sea frames the building of these boats. The sea is foreman in Baltimore, watching the work of the welder, waiting to test its strength. The sea attracts outsiders to Baltimore, men like Breton Ewan Jacob, whose hopes of farming the sea died on an ebb of neglect. The sea inspires designers like Bevine Martin, whose distinctive sweaters are worn by yachtsmen round the world. And now the sea offers Baltimore another rich but dangerous future as a major base for leisure sailing.
It is all important to Baltimore. The sea Baltimore wouldn't be there only for the sea, I would think. It's between the fishing and the boat building and the
tourism, you could say, is geared to the sea as well, you know.
Yachting, it is a yachting harbour now. So it is all important.
Would you say that I do, as I said, get this kind of cosmopolitan feeling, and I think perhaps it's because Baltimore just isn't here for tourists. I mean, there is genuine activity going on, and there is a fishing industry. I mean, is that, do you think, what has given Baltimore its character over the years, that it's not just a picturesque village alone?
Yeah, that is true, because there's always been boat building here and fishing here, so that there's always been activity here, you know. The tourism sort of was a second thing that followed on.
The Baltimore boats seem to be still a sought-after product, and we took over this yard 2 years ago. We haven't looked back since, and the immediate future, at least as far as the end of 1982, looks pretty bright for us. We are pretty well booked out here for at least another 18 months, which is as much as anybody could expect to have in hands, because fishermen ordering a boat and investing that kind of money in a vessel would want to have a vessel within 12 months. So consequently, at any stage, recession or not, you'd never be booked further than at least 18 months or 2 years. We are in that happy position at the moment.
Bevine Martin has had a happier experience. Her distinctive sweaters are now prized by sailors from Baltimore to Brittany.
Well, there isn't anything like them that I'm aware of in Ireland anyway. And they're different, and yet they're Irish, you know. They just seem to sell.
Well, the design is very different, and I can feel this. The wool is smooth, but it's quite heavy. So, is it slightly oiled?
It's slightly oiled, and it's very, very heavy, but in a dense sort of way.
So it's ideal for obviously being out on the boundary.
It is. Well, you can fit oilskins on top of them and coats on top of them, without them being so heavy that you couldn't.
You came out here from Cork with your husband.
That's right.
So how do you find living here in Baltimore, and how do you find having a business here?
I think you'd need to know what you're doing to move from a city to the country and be happy with it. If I didn't have some work to do, I think I would find it very difficult.
Do you feel that you fit in here now?
I think I'm known here. I doubt that I fit in. I don't think anybody who moves from one place to another is, in 10 years going to be a member of the community. But I get on very well with people, and they're very good to me. But I'm not one of them.
Well, as somebody who's not one of the local community, what do you think of Baltimore and the way it's going to develop over the next 10 years?
I think it needs to be watched very carefully indeed. And I think it probably hasn't been watched carefully enough up to date.
By my own experience in Brittany, I've seen places 12 years ago absolutely deserted, and today they are well overcrowded with boats, and every day I have French people, French friends or English friends asking me if there is any possibility of sailing in Baltimore, and I know that in a few years' time the place will be absolutely invaded with yachts.
There's no invasion yet. There's still plenty of room in Skinner's boatyard for cosmetic jobs on the beloved mistresses of Ireland's yachting elite. And because the Elizabethans and their successors built well, Baltimore is still beautiful. The facades of pub and shop, restaurant and sailing school show that the people of Baltimore care. But it takes no great artistic eye to worry about the beginning of the sprawl of modern glass that rises above the old village. Baltimore is lucky so far. No hamburger joint, no fish and chip shop deface its lines. The elegance of its food reflects its outlined facade. The paint is as fresh as its fish. And it's lucky too that its hoteliers and restaurateurs understand where the real strength of Baltimore lies. Cormac O'Carroll.
If you've got your shellfish industry, for example, your boat building industry, your fishing industry, they bring tourists, and it's by the tourists we make our living. And the business, all those businesses in Baltimore, is important to us, that they survive and progress.
During summer, we try to run to course.
These French accents, however, are probably the real key to Baltimore's future. After World War II, Breton fishermen and French resistance heroes set out to plan a sporting activity to bring people together in peace. They decided on sailing. They called their club Glenans. Here we are on a very choppy day, passing the Kedge Islands on our way into Baltimore Harbour. So if I turn green in a minute, don't adjust your set. There's a little flotilla of boats behind us, and I'm just wondering what they are. Enda, you're the skipper. What are they doing now? They're much lighter crafts than what we're in.
Yes, well, they're basically day sailors. There are 4 day sailors there and 2 small cruisers. They belong to the Glenans Sailing Club, and they have a base here in Baltimore where they instruct their pupils in seamanship. This course that's on here at the moment actually is a course for trainee instructors.
Is it a very elite kind of a school, or what is the position with it? Can
No,
anybody
it's not.
join?
Well, I don't think sailing is elite in this country at the moment anyway. But anyone who wants to, who has an interest in sailing, can join the Glenans. And the great advantage is, of course, that they're club boats that you're using. You don't have to have your own boat. That's one of the big expenses.
Enda said that the sailing is, he doesn't think it's elite in this country, but it seems to me that it is. I mean, that's how I would view it now.
Well, I think that it has been elite and still is, but is becoming more and more less elite. For instance, at Glenans this year, we have started a programme to introduce youth clubs. Of course, the blind people, we have our blind sailing programme going to introduce youth clubs and other areas who can't afford to sail elsewhere.
It's not even though affording to sail, it's just the idea, say, supposing you came from, say, Ross Gray, or supposing one of the big housing estates in Dublin. You might be able to raise the money all right, but you'd never even think of it, you know? So
No, I can't agree. There are people in our club from all walks of life, even though a large percentage are what might be called middle class professions, but now it's definitely opening up and anybody can sail.
So any young one or young fella from any part of the country can just write to Glenans.
Just write to Glenans, 1 Kildare Street, Dublin, and get a booking form. They pay a membership fee of £7, and then you are free to sail, do a beginner's course and start off from there and stay with the club as long as you like. Leave the club if you want to.
There's very bad visibility coming in.
Yeah, so
We're going to have to go
in.
back to harbour now because there's really bad weather moving in on us now.
That was the part they didn't tell me about. I've just been violently ill. Pat, does this happen to everybody?
Well, it does really. Even the initiated, even the hardened sailors. When you're in a swell, bopping up and down like this with not a lot of wind.
Why is it? I mean, I thought now I'd have good balance and everything. I think
You have to get your sea legs, you have to find them. Most of us were very queasy our first few days out, but now, as you can see, we've settled down and just forget all about seasickness, which is why I didn't tell you.